What does this look like in a practical sense?
Great question. What I would invite people to do, one of the most important variables in this process, Jesse, is, does the individual believe in the body's natural ability to heal itself? One of my students, she was a graduate of Mayo Medical School. Her dad went to Harvard. She thought, what can I do to out-trump the old man? She went to Mayo, and he said, I'm impressed. But she's OBGYN over in Temple, Texas. Just a wonderful clinician. And she asks all of her patients now, if I gave you all the nutrients that your body needs to heal itself, do you believe in its ability to do that? And she says, 99% of the people believe it. Absolutely, I know I can do it. 1% she has to really work on. So that's very encouraging. But people need to do a gut check. Do I believe in my body's ability? And they also have to be willing to stray from convention. What's the famous saying by Mark Twain? If you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to switch sides. And I think that's where most people find themselves in society now, is, huddled with the masses, because there's protection in the masses, right? So you got to get out away from that and strike a path. The path less traveled is very, very important. That's certainly the path of the RCP. But what I think people need to do is understand that there are phases to our protocol. That what we're really trying to do is restore adrenal health. We're trying to restore mineral balance in the body. We're trying to restore fat metabolism in the body. We're trying to make sure that the base minerals are present. And again, we've grown up in this world that is very agnostic to minerals. They didn't tell us what the mechanisms of action were. They didn't tell us that you can't make vitamin D, storage D, without magnesium. They didn't tell us that osteoporosis is in fact caused by an iron buildup in the bone because it's not recycling right, and it's causing calcium loss. They forgot to tell us that the that the acid phosphatase enzyme to create osteoporosis is triggered by iron, that the alkaline phosphatase enzyme to rebuild the matrix is triggered by magnesium. Well, what happens to magnesium in the presence of iron? It's out the door. And so we don't know these base interactions. And what we're trying to do in the protocol is ground the understanding about how important bioavailable copper is, especially this master antioxidant protein, ceruloplasmin, that has, it's 1,046 amino acids. It's one of the biggest proteins in the human body. It's a tank, has 8 soldiers inside, supposed to have 8. There's differing theories why it's losing its coppers, but we won't go there for now. But the thing is, it is about the whole premise of Big Pharma is one gene, one protein, one function. Ceruloplasmin is one gene. It is one protein. One gene, one protein. It has 9 enzyme functions. There's 15 known substrates that ceruloplasmin can change. It's well documented in the literature, but it's not taught in practitioner school. And so it's a real threat to the one gene, one protein, one function model. And the very origin of the RCP was my reading a very important article by Ray Peat on the dangers of iron. And towards the end of the article, he said, to my knowledge, no one has ever come up with a recipe to increase ceruloplasmin. Bong. Said, that's what I'm going to do. That's what the book is all about. And so I made a point to study it. And when the protocol first emerged, there were 2 stops and 2 starts. Well, now there's 14 stops, and I think it's 13 or 14 starts. But the starts are in phases to allow people to ease into this lifestyle. It's not a diet, it is a lifestyle program. And the two of the most important components of the protocol, getting down to very practical issues, obviously based on eating healthy food. We recommend the Weston A. Price diet because I think it's one that makes the most sense, and we can talk about that at some point as well. But obviously, minerals are very important. Vitamin complexes, very, very important. Real whole food vitamin complexes, not the foo-foo stuff that they want us to think about. And it's really important for people to get into a regular program of blood donation to lower the iron footprint. It's immensely important. Like I'll be 73 in a couple of weeks, and I've got 26,000 milligrams of iron in my body. We're designed for 5,000. Men are designed for 5,000. Women are designed for 4,000. In this model, it's a very simple model. Take your age, multiply times 365. It's not my formula. It's the formula that's used by all iron biologists on the planet. They know what's happening. Well, the iron biologists know about this study. They're very well versed in this. They know that aging is iron accumulation. We just didn't know that. And so Bay Pete made this comment, let's get a recipe. I developed a recipe. It is controversial. By design, it's controversial because we got to wake people up. We got to get them out of the stupor that the system is there for us. It's not. It's just, we've got to take responsibility for ourselves. And so donating blood is very, very important program. The other key component is dumping your fear. And what people don't realize is that when we're in a state of fear, and we spell it differently, it's Fe-AR, that way you see the symbol for iron. When you're in a state of fear, you become a magnet for iron. And that's the research that we just came upon in the last few months. This fear and all of these factors, the stress models are driving iron accumulation that we didn't know was taking place. And where is the iron accumulating? In the mitochondria. What's killing energy production in the mitochondria? The iron buildup, because it can't get out. Why? Because the doorways in the mitochondria and the cell are shut off. Why are they shut off? Because they're copper dependent. And so the practical basis of the protocol is to get people to realize that it's a three-ring circus that runs life on planet Earth. It's copper, iron, and oxygen. And if they don't play well together, you're going to have oxidative stress. And there are 20,000 symptoms that are described in the Merck manual. Guess what they all begin with? Oxidative stress. That's the triggering mechanism for all of those conditions. And I didn't know that at first. I worked in hospitals for 32 years. I really thought, wow, they know what they're doing. No, they don't. Because I don't think doctors as a body know how energy is made. I don't think they know how bone is made, how blood is made, how babies are made, nor how the hormones get activated. Why do I say that? That's a very offensive thing to say. Well, the reason why I take that stance, Jesse, is that all of those 5 components require copper. And copper is Voldemort in medical school, that which cannot be named. They're not taught about copper metabolism. And so if you don't know copper, you don't know the fundamentals of the human physiology. And I think that's what's got to change. We've got to get back to the origin of how we evolved, how we emerged with energy production, that there's a reason why we transcended from anaerobic metabolism to aerobic metabolism. So when you're burning sugars or burning fat with oxygen, there's this explosion of ATP. That's really important to know. And that's why humans have evolved into this higher order level of thinking. That's our gift. And we wouldn't be having this switched on conversation on these really fancy computers without higher order thinking. I would argue that all of that's been made possible so that we can metabolize oxygen with copper to activate the production of energy or the release of energy. And it's great that that iron is carrying the oxygen. It's a waiter. That's what hemoglobin is. It's a waiter. Releases oxygen. But copper is the chef. It's turning that oxygen into water. And I think that's the missing piece of the puzzle for the public. And it doesn't need to be complicated to understand how energy is made. And once you start to make energy, brain fog goes away, the fatigue goes away. A lot of different factors begin to recede into the background as the body is able to restore its natural rhythm of energy production and the recycling. And the number of recycling systems in the body is amazing. And guess what they all require? Gotta have copper. Autophagy doesn't work without copper. The whole concept of the bone matrix, the recycling that takes place there, highly dependent on minerals. But copper is what's really directing the energy production and the key components of the recycling. And that is it's lost in the modern era from my perspective.
So it's become very obvious. Copper is at the heart of this. We want to make sure we're getting enough copper, and we're currently not. You mentioned the Weston A. Price diet. Last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's following that diet or something similar, how much of these nutrients can we get from diet alone versus supplementing?
I think we're faced with a world now that's changed because of glyphosate and COVID. We need to move beyond the innocence of Dr. Price's era. I mean, I have just the greatest respect for his research and what he did to try to document his findings. But glyphosate is a beast. It's a very powerful chemical. Nothing stops glyphosate. Had a very life-changing conversation with Stephanie Seneff over that back in 2018. She said nothing stops glyphosate down to a pH of 1. And then you pick up the research of Don Huber at Purdue University. And he's got this logarithmic scale of how minerals are being chelated by glyphosate. Well, a logarithmic scale is like an earthquake. Earthquake of 3 is no big deal. Dishes rattle, but no one gets hurt. Earthquake of 12, there's no life after that. It's all gone. And so glyphosate chelates calcium and magnesium at a 3, chelates iron and zinc at a 9. That's faster, but it chelates copper at a 12. Well, what does that mean? It means that glyphosate is chelating copper 1 billion times faster than calcium and magnesium, and 1,000 times faster than iron and zinc. The problem, Jesse, is those big numbers make no sense to us. It goes right over our head. 1,000 times faster? I mean, I know what twice as fast is, or 3 times as fast. 1,000 times faster? 1 billion times faster? And so we tend to disregard that. And the idea that glyphosate is only commercial farms? No. It's in the air now. It's worldwide. And the famous study done in France in 2022 to discover that 99% of French citizens are now peeing glyphosate in their urine. So I think the food system was very different today than it was 30 years ago. That coupled with changes in food processing. High fructose corn syrup is a very powerful chemical. I don't know whether people know that, but it chelates copper by design. Wow, didn't know that. And then we've got some very powerful medications that do the same thing. And so I think we are duty bound to follow the wisdom of Dr. Price and go to farmers markets and get the best possible form of that food that we can. But I also think we are at a point in life on the planet where we need to supplement. We absolutely need to make sure that we're getting the minerals, that we're getting the vitamin complexes, that we're getting the nutrient factors that are critical for these metabolic pathways that I don't think are in the organic food that we're all trying to locate and sequester for our diet. I think it's a very different world now. And I think it's going to be that way for a good long while until the regenerative farming movement has a more dominant footprint in society. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. But the infrastructure of the CAFO farms is so enormous. I think we really need to be prudent to make sure we're getting the critical nutrient cofactors, which we talk about in the RCP, and make sure that is complementing and supplementing a very healthy diet.
So we know iron toxicity is a big piece of this, or iron dysfunction, the way you label it in your book. Somebody might be thinking now, if I adopt the Weston A. Price diet, I'm eating a lot of red meat. That has a lot of iron. Talk about the difference there between iron found in food, in red meat or other meats specifically, because I know there's heme and non-heme iron, and we won't go down that whole non-heme iron train today, versus supplementing. And then we'll end it there.
So, yeah, there's a massive difference between heme and non-heme iron. 95% of the research in iron is on non-heme iron. That's very interesting. 5% is on the heme side. Body knows what to do with heme iron. It goes back way back in time. But we're not supposed to eat animals, right? That's very dangerous. It's got fat. Lean meat. Don't eat fatty meat, right? I mean, the programming is just so predictable. And again, whether you're eating red meat or whatever, you got to have copper in your diet. In order to metabolize the iron, in order to recycle the iron, in order to mature the red blood cell, and so on and so forth, you must have copper. And it's had a very low profile for many decades. And I think the public is only mildly waking up to that reality. And we've got to get past this assertion that it's toxic. It's not. There's a complete misunderstanding about that. But the thing is, one of the great books is Primal Body, Primal Mind by Nora House. And I love the line when she's talking to the anthropologist, and she says, "So what did early man and early woman eat?" And if they're telling you the truth, that the paleontologist would say they ate the fattest meat they could find. That's what our physiology is really designed, not lean meat. So we need the nutrients that are found in fatty meat, and you got to have copper to go along with that. So organ meats are really, really important because they have a lot more mitochondria, and copper's hanging out there. So I think people need to step back from some of the programming that they've been exposed to, and take the time to study what we talk about within the RCP from an ancestral point of view. Historically speaking, our ancestors ate organ meats and threw the muscle meat to the dogs. Now we've flipped that narrative. We're so sophisticated. We eat the muscle meat and we throw the organ meats to the dog. And people don't realize that there's been this wholesale reversal of how animals are supposed to be fed. And there was a reason why our ancestors ate organ meats, because they were nutrient dense and had the cofactors that would run our body. And so we need to go back to the basics, and don't be fearful of iron. Be fearful of how little copper you have in your diet. In the 1930s, the average diet delivered 4 to 6 milligrams of copper. By the 1960s, it had dropped to 2 to 5 milligrams of copper. And now today, in the modern era, quote unquote modern era, we're lucky if we get 9/10 of 1 milligram of copper. And so no one's taking stock of that other than people like Jamie Collins or Leslie Clavet or people of that stature. And they're like, this is a serious problem, folks. And what Jamie Collins has done is taken, he works with rodent models, but he's taken the amount of iron fortification and supplementation that we as humans get, is he's programmed it down to the rodent size. And when they're exposed to that level of iron, guess what it does? It silences copper metabolism. And so it's just, we're not aware of the amazing research that's being done on the planet just around these two metals and how interdependent they are. And we again, we're back to, we have monocrop farms and we have mononutrient focus. Just get some more iron. Just get some more calcium. Just get some more vitamin D and it'll be fine. And no one's stepping back to say, wait a minute, aren't these guys working in pairs? Aren't they working in relationship? And that's what I think we're missing context and perspective in modern nutrition. I think that's really the biggest gap that's holding us back.
Enjoyed that clip? You're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
The practical basis of the protocol is to get people to realize that it's a 3-ring circus that runs life on planet Earth: copper, iron, and oxygen. And if they don't play well together, you're going to have oxidative stress.